We're in a capitalist country, and this is the power that we have as consumers and as citizens.
Right now at 6, protesters here and around the nation pushing back against ICE and the Trump administration, why they're also targeting the profit margins of some major companies. And Bay Area transit fans are hitting the pavement, their push for a lifeline to avert a financial crisis. And then speaking of getting around, some engineers are working on a plan that would protect commuters, both human and wildlife.
We're trying to address safety as well as mobility for wildlife.
The tunnel in the works to make sure everyone gets to their destinations safely. And already thousands of cancellations and delays nationwide as much of the U.S. braces for a monster winter storm. How travelers are trying to navigate it all right here in the Bay Area.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us at 6. Another busy day of protests around the Bay Area. It is part of a national ICE Out for Good push, demonstrating against the Trump administration's immigration enforcement and the shooting death of Renee Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. So here's a look at the large protest this evening in San Francisco. Hundreds gathering at 4th and Mission outside of the Target there. Other protests happening in Fremont and Oakland. Our chopper was also over a crowd gathering at Fruitvale Village in Oakland for a march. And then we take you to Berkeley, where people were also out and about denouncing ICE activity in Minneapolis, this time in front of a Hilton-branded hotel. Demonstrations are calling on Hilton to stop booking rooms for ICE agents. So our Daw Lynn is live in Berkeley at that hotel with the message from protesters and a look at whether companies can legally refuse service to certain groups. Daw.
That's right, Juliette. Yeah, this protest here in Berkeley wrapped up not too long ago in front of this Graduate Hotel. It's part of the Hilton brand. Now, protesters have shifted their tactics to now targeting corporations that are, in their view, working with ICE. A vocal group of protesters targeting the Graduate Hotel, making a lot of noise to shame the hotel for being part of the Hilton brand.
We're in a capitalist country, and this is the power that we have as consumers.
Dozens of protesters like Rachel Burston lined Duran Avenue, calling on Hilton to stop renting rooms to ICE agents. They're also upset that Hilton stripped a Minneapolis hotel of its brand after employees there canceled an ICE booking.
People who have reservations at the Hilton cancel their reservations or give it 1 star and tell them why they're doing it.
Rachel says it's one way to apply economic pressure on corporations that work with ICE. And they're not alone. Similar protests took place across the country on Friday, all targeting ICE.
We're here right in front of the U.S. Bank Stadium, downtown Minneapolis. People are coming from all over the city, all over the state, all over the country to really be here, to stand up against ICE, to resist, to say fascism is not okay.
Reverend Kevin Mann is a community minister at the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. He and a fellow minister traveled from Oakland to Minneapolis to protest on Friday. Many faith leaders are calling on ICE to leave Minnesota. He also supports boycotting companies that work with ICE.
And if you look at the movements of the past, the civil rights movement, the United Farm Workers movement, the great boycotts, bus boycotts, economic pressure is how we win.
But attorneys say Hilton cannot legally deny service to a specific group.
You cannot do that. Just like you can't exclude individuals based on their race or their age or their religious beliefs. It's the same thing. The Unruh Act prohibits such discrimination.
Robert Issa is a senior trial attorney with the law firm Duane Morris. He specializes in employment and discrimination law. He says there are some obvious safety-related exceptions, like this sign we often see in restaurants.
If you don't have a shirt on or you don't have shoes, you're not going to be permitted into this restaurant with bare feet, because we consider that to be a health issue. They have the right to do that.
Rachel says money talks, and she plans to keep boycotting Hilton.
The American people are starting to wake up and stand against the things that are going on. So I have faith.
I talked to the front desk receptionist. He says no ICE agents staying at the hotel at this time. Now, he declined to talk about the protest or comment on the protest. Juliet, overall, this was a very peaceful protest that wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. Back to you.
All right, Donlin, appreciate your report. Thank you. The biggest protest so far happening in San Francisco at 4th and Mission. It's right outside Target. And the chain has faced plenty of backlash in the last year. It all started after it rolled back its DEI initiatives. Now the company is facing criticism after 2 employees who were U.S. citizens were detained by ICE in Minnesota earlier this month. Target is one of Minnesota's largest employers and is headquartered in Minneapolis. Demonstrators are calling for an economic strike, saying the company allows federal agents to use its parking lots and restrooms for operations.
What we're seeing right now in Minneapolis and across the United States is an attack on all of us as workers, as members of the working class. And so it's our responsibility. It's going to fall on us to beat back the ICE invasion.
Target has not commented on the calls for a boycott or the ICE operations. All right, to Fremont now. A small group of protesters also gathered to speak out against ICE. So this was the scene at Fremont Boulevard and Mallory Avenue. Protesters tell us the enforcement is moving the U.S. in the wrong direction. They want to make sure the country includes everyone. All right, on to other news we're following tonight. It is no secret the Bay Area's public transportation systems are struggling financially. And for some, like Muni, it could get worse this summer when state and federal pandemic relief funding ends. So take a look at BART, for example. The agency is facing an ongoing financial deficit between $350 and $400 million. The upcoming fiscal year could see a $376 million deficit. Okay, but there is a bright spot. BART says last month, ridership rose more than 13% in December after a year of steady growth. But to close the current budget gap with just fare revenue, ridership would need to more than double. And now riders and local leaders are trying to help out. A campaign for a proposed regional sales tax kicked off today. Kelsey Thor talked to one volunteer getting signatures to get that tax on the ballot.
Do you guys register to vote in San Francisco? You are. Have you signed the petition yet?
Not yet.
Okay, that would be fantastic if you could. Just put your full registered voting address in San Francisco. Thank you.
Stanley Zhang is one of dozens of volunteers who fanned out across the Bay Area Friday, collecting signatures to get a regional transportation funding measure on this November's ballot.
I live in Ingleside in San Francisco, and there have been some transit-related issues there that I want to get involved in, so I figured this is a great way to do it, and I heard about the ballot measure. So,
in recent years, public transit agencies across the Bay have faced the threat of significant service cuts due to what transit advocates are calling an unprecedented fiscal cliff. To keep those transit agencies afloat, local leaders, including State Senator Scott Wiener and Jesse Arreguín, as well as Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee and San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie, are throwing their support behind a regional sales tax, a half-cent for Alameda, Contra Costa, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties, and a full-cent sales tax in San Francisco to cover Muni's deficits.
Public transportation, it's really not a luxury. It's really a necessity. It's a necessity. And so this is all hands on deck.
We are truly at a crossroads where we're going to decide, where our city and our region are going to decide, do we want to continue to have strong, robust public transportation so that people can get where they're going.
In order to get the funding measure on the ballot, though, supporters have to collect more than 186,000 signatures across all 5 counties by June. That's why organizers kicked off their signature gathering with a rally in San Francisco's Embarcadero Plaza.
We've heard why this is important. We know what we need to do, and now it's time to get to work.
Armed with clipboards and pens, volunteers like Stanley took to the streets to start gathering signatures one by one. Stanley told us he knows the amount of signatures needed is a lot, but he's confident they will get enough by that June deadline. And he's hopeful voters will support and pass the measure in November. The alternative, he says, isn't an option.
I'm really worried that if this measure doesn't pass, we will see really fundamental shifts in a bad way for not just transit, but the whole Bay Area, like the economy, as people were pointing out, traffic just going through the roof. Like, that's just unacceptable. And we live in a modern city that really deserves better.
At the start of the year, several agencies raised tolls and fares. Tolls on 7 state-owned bridges in the area went up by 50 cents. BART fares also jumped by 6.2%. All right, a live look now from Half Moon Bay and a remembrance ceremony happening. People there honoring the 7 farm workers who were killed in a mass shooting 3 years ago today. We will have more on this event and how the community is still healing coming up at 7 p.m. Still ahead, right here at 6, a new project aims to keep people and wild animals safe in a valley between the Diablo Range and the Santa Cruz Mountains.
We are trying to create a super highway for wildlife.
Animals are indicators. If we see them disappearing, something's going wrong.
We expected the fog and low cloud cover this morning to keep temperatures about 2 or 3 degrees below average. Instead, it stuck around long enough to keep us 5 to 10 degrees below normal. But the cool down, short-lived. We're going to warm up already tomorrow. Details in the full weekend forecast coming up in First Alert Weather.
Think of it as a superhighway for wildlife in Santa Clara County. The Valley Transportation Authority is launching a wildlife crossing project in the Coyote Valley. As Len Ramirez reports, new tunnels are aimed at preventing fewer traffic collisions between humans and wild animals.
Well, this is a major step toward protecting wildlife and drivers, and it will all soon be taking shape down there in this key location of Coyote Valley.
Oh yeah, you could just see the herds way on the top of the peaks where they feel safer, where they got a good vantage point.
Roger Castillo has been walking these hills in South San Jose for decades. A longtime conservationist, he's documented how wildlife, including the Tule elk, have pushed closer to the edges of Silicon Valley.
That's the way it was historically, and you know, animals move around, all animals move around.
From a distance, you can see the clash, wildlife framed against one of the most developed regions of the country.
Animals are indicators. If we see them disappearing, something's going wrong with the way we live.
And that's where a new project in the Coyote Valley comes in. Engineer Zaire Gulzada with the Valley Transportation Authority is leading a project to design a wildlife tunnel where the valley narrows to restore an historic connection between 2 mountain ranges, the Diablo Range to the east and the Santa Cruz Mountains to the west.
We are trying to create a super highway for wildlife.
The plan calls for large tunnels similar to this Concrete Creek channel running underneath Highway 101, Monterey Road, and Union Pacific train tracks. Construction would cause little to no traffic disruption, and it would benefit drivers as much as wildlife.
So for instance, deer, they do have to cross these major roadways. And if they come in conflict with the vehicle, of course there's a collision, and that's a safety for both the motorists as well as that wildlife that collides with.
According to one UC Davis study, the 1-mile stretch of Highway 101 that crosses Coyote Creek is in the top 5% of annual wildlife vehicle collision costs per mile in California.
We're trying to address safety as well as mobility for wildlife.
The project is funded by the Peninsula Open Space Trust, known as POST, which received a $5 million grant to pay for the work.
The best way to ensure that animals will find and use the crossing is to place them where we know animals are already trying to cross the road. So there's been really wonderful evidence of wildlife finding and using wildlife crossing. So if you build them, they will come.
There's quite a large population of deer, and now of course the elk.
Roger, who's not directly involved in this project, says conservation efforts like this can't come soon enough.
It's long overdue, and it's really minimal.
The project aims to restore balance, not just for wildlife, but for the entire ecosystem we all share.
Bidding and construction for the project likely will not start until 2028. Meantime, it's not just Coyote Valley. VTA is also working on a separate project on Highway 17 right by the Lexington Reservoir. That one calls for a wildlife tunnel along with a separate overcrossing for hikers and mountain bikers. Construction on that project is slated to start in 2027. All right, coming up, a travel headache for people on both coasts. How airports are prepping for a massive winter storm set to bring heavy snow and ice across much of the U.S.
Hey, Johnny Mosley here. The Toyota is loaded up and ready to carve some new lines. So let's see what Mother Nature cooked up for us, shall we? The Toyota Tahoe Report is queued up. Let's take a look.
All right, this weekend we continue to reap the benefits of what was a very good late December and early January. These resorts in the Central Sierra as a whole are still sitting about 60% of average for snowfall for this time of year. What that means for skiers is a solid base. That is more than enough snow for a continuation of a 3-foot base for all the resorts. And when you add on top of that, it has been cold enough, at least on the higher slopes, that many of these resorts have been able to produce new man-made snow. Just know that Wednesday is going to be a bit breezy. Not bad enough it should be a problem, but it might be a bit 20-mile-an-hour gust when you get up to some of the higher ridge tops on Saturday. Most of the lifts should be absolutely fine. Sunday will be better. That is your Toyota Tahoe Report.
You've likely heard a major winter storm is hitting much of the country this weekend. So this is a live look from Philadelphia, where a snow emergency has been declared. Already today, there have been more than 4,000 flight delays and at least 630 cancellations nationwide. Come back here to the Bay Area. FlightAware says 12 flights at SFO have been canceled. More than 130 have been delayed. And the headaches are only expected to get worse this weekend, leaving some people worried about their flights on Monday.
We don't know if we'll be able to get back home on Monday or if we'll have to wait till later on in the week.
And some of the major U.S. airlines are allowing travelers to rebook without change fees if they'd rather just avoid the mess entirely. Isn't that nice of them, Paul? You avoid the $150 change fee.
I mean, they're learning that it's better to get ahead of these things and let people change it ahead of time.
That's true.
And then they don't have a crush of people at the airport, yelling at the poor gate agents to try to get on the next flight out. It's going to be a mess for several days. So we're going to start with the national perspective, and we'll come back to our local weather here, which is chilly today, but it'll warm up tomorrow. This is going to be just a storm system to remember. Look at all of the cold weather and winter weather alerts in effect right now. It's cold weather advisories and extreme cold warnings for the upper Midwest, where wind chills have been down to around -40 to -50. In pink, that's a winter storm warning that extends from Albuquerque all the way to New York. And then in the dark shade of purple here from East Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and then also a separate area of dark purple from Georgia into the Carolinas. Those are ice storm warnings. So there's going to be both snow and a wide swath of freezing rain, putting significant stress on the power grid, especially underneath that freezing rain. Look at all of it just continuing to fall as we head through the weekend. This is going to advance to the east, and where all the pink is, that's the freezing rain and sleet. That is going to continue to march through the southern U.S., and then the northeastern travel hubs are going to be impacted by the storm system for the second half of the weekend. This has cascading effects across the entire country, as we saw with that handful of delays and a handful of cancellations and a bunch of delays at the Bay Area airports already today. Let's talk about our weather, which today was on the chilly side, but tomorrow the winds are going to pick up, and that's going to help to scour out that low cloud cover and fog. Already the winds starting to be noticeable as the sun comes up tomorrow morning, but the winds really pick up as we head through tomorrow morning to about midday, especially at higher elevations. That's where the wind gusts are going to be in the 30 to 40 mile an hour range, and this is going to be an offshore wind, helping to not only scour out the low cloud cover and fog, but also stir around the lowest levels of the atmosphere, and that is going to help our air quality. The wind's already dying down by tomorrow evening, so it's not going to be a prolonged wind event, but air quality should be a mix of good and moderate readings tomorrow and Sunday. Today, we had a lot of orange, unhealthy for sensitive groups, air quality ratings for inland parts of the Bay Area. But once the winds calm down, it doesn't take long for us to return to that moderate category Monday and Tuesday. We need some rain to wash that stuff out of the atmosphere. It's just not very likely until the middle of next week. And our long-range forecast models are still disagreeing. American forecast model tries to bring some light rain showers into the North Bay on Wednesday, and that's pretty much it. It falls apart as it tries to make its way farther across the Bay Area. European forecast model has slowed down compared to 24 hours ago, but still presents the better chance of showers for more of the Bay Area, late Wednesday and into Wednesday night, potentially even lingering into early Thursday morning. But it does look like Wednesday and Wednesday night will be the best chance of any measurable rain for the Bay Area. We'll keep a lookout for it. Right now, not seeing any fog, just kind of hazy as we look towards the Golden Gate. Temperatures in the upper 40s and low 50s across the board. Not a whole lot of variation. Dog walking forecast for tomorrow. We get to break through to abundant sunshine, which is good news for our adoptable bonded pair of the day, an actual father-daughter bonded pair, George and Georgina, ready for a home that can take them both in. Well, they get to frolic in the sunshine while they're waiting for that home tomorrow, with temperatures reaching up into the low 60s in Petaluma, which is where they are with Roxy's Ranch Haven. Let's take a look at the forecast temperature pattern for tomorrow. After a cool start, we are going to warm up to a much greater extent than we did today, with high temperatures back to a little above average, into the low 60s in the Santa Clara Valley, mostly low 60s east of the Oakland Hills, and low 60s around the Bay. And at the coast, you should be noticing a theme by now, low 60s in the North Bay as well. Some of the warmest spots there, even reaching up to the mid to upper 60s, thanks to the influence of those offshore winds. So a few degrees above normal, and then we cool off again on Sunday with more clouds. And then we kind of level off around 60 degrees from Monday through the rest of next week. At one chance of rain showers on Wednesday. That's our best hope for seeing a little bit more measurable rain before we finish off the month of January. But by that point, it will have been 3 weeks since we have seen any measurable rain.
Well, I was just thinking, honestly, if you're stuck on delays at SFO, you're not in a bad spot in the Bay Area for weather, right?
Right. May as well hang out for a couple extra days.
Yeah. All right, Paul, thanks so much. When we come back, have you ever received a package in a pretty beat up looking box? How Amazon is trying to change that and save the earth at the same time. Also, here's a look at what's ahead on the CBS Evening News.
Good evening. Tonight, our extensive coverage of this major winter storm. More than half the country bracing for debilitating conditions. That's ahead on the CBS Evening News.
Tomorrow night, the UFC kicks off a new era on Paramount Plus with its first event of the year. UFC 324 will be held in Las Vegas, headlined by Justin the Highlight Gaethje versus Patty the Batty Pimblett. Oh yeah, for the interim lightweight title. Also, you can catch all the action tomorrow on Paramount Plus starting at 6 p.m. All right, speaking of UFC, Amazon's Innovation Lab might remind you of being in the ring. Here's why. Researchers at the lab are busy slamming, smashing, stacking packages every single day. It's actually part of a study to see how boxes and pouches fare when they're picked up by machines. Engineers also run weather tests and delivery truck simulations, all to make sure products are sturdy enough to make it from a fulfillment center to your home in one piece. So the objective is to see how much a product can take with as little plastic and cardboard waste as possible. All right, stay tuned. CBS Evening News is next on KPIX. Local news continues on our streaming service, CBS News Bay Area. We're back right here in 30 minutes with more news at 7 o'clock just for you. Thanks so much for joining us.